I'm Damien the DM from Adventures in Aurelia, a collaborative storytelling experience told through a game of Dungeons & Dragons, part of the GonnaGeek network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other epically geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven, Chris, and SP.
Welcome to episode 421, the Christmas 2025 edition of the GonnaGeek Show. I am Steven, and I am pleased to say Chris Farrell is here with me.
My brain hurts so much with this Christmas hat.
Also, he's back. He's here to keep us in line. SP's here.
Dude, you guys are late because I had my family Christmas yesterday, so it's like in between. It's Boxing Day today for me. It's Boxing Day.
I'll box you.
I'll box myself. But hey, guess what? I apologize in advance. SP, I am not wearing my geeky jerseys this year because for the first time in many years, I can wear green again. So I am indeed wearing my Let's Get Elfed Up shirt because I can wear green. So I had to do it because it's been so long since I could wear green.
That's all right. Canada's going to lose the juniors here, so it's okay not to wear a jersey. You just be shamed not to wear a jersey.
All right, I will be shamed. And since we all know you don't listen to this show when you're not on it, I just want to ask you a question, which is going to make no sense to you. How's your bidet knowledge?
Fun fact, I've never actually used a bidet, but I know what one is.
Okay, well, you should listen to last week's episode because I was putting it out there that I thought it would be one of those random SP things that you would know a lot about bidets. So I guess I'm wrong.
I know about bidets and sailboats because it's better to use a bidet or even a sprayer hose than to clog up the tank on board with feminine products and toilet paper.
Gotcha. So if you have a follow-up about this, you'll have to come back in 2026 because we will be back in 2026. We said we would last year, and we did come back eventually in 2025, but this time we'll be back in January, okay? Jury's still out on exactly which day, but it'll probably be somewhere around the 12th, I would think.
Are we sure it's January 2026? I mean, conceivably, it could be 2027 or 2028.
Let's just leave it at
2030.
We'll be back in 2026.
Oh, okay, that's better.
Does that work?
It's an awful big promise.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know. It's taking a leap.
What if I get struck by a meteorite tomorrow?
Also, I would just like to say I have these lights behind me, and I kind of want to put a dot there and a dot there. For the audio listeners, you won't get that.
I would say I would talk to your interior decorator, but I think I know his name.
Yes. Should we get to the news?
Please.
Sometimes people get a reputation for bad news, and that's Chris Farrell.
I've been told worse things on this show, so I'll accept it. I'm okay with this. But yes, I do have, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, it may or may not be bad news, but I'm sure you guys on this show and many of you listening are familiar with the company iRobot. For those that are not familiar, they are a 35-year-old company, the maker of the Roomba robot vacuum. And late Sunday night, as we record this on Monday, December 15th, they filed for bankruptcy protection. The Massachusetts-based company has struggled for years amid increasing competition from a variety of Chinese manufacturers when it comes to robot vacuums. They were, however, one of the early pioneers in household robotics, founded in 1990. And like I mentioned before, they launched the Roomba robot in 2002. And remember, it kind of became a thing in pop culture, this little robot that can vacuum your house and things like that. And nowadays, it's kind of a commonplace thing. So what went wrong? Well, following warnings issued earlier this year, iRobot was fast running out of options, And it said entering Chapter 11 protection will allow it to be acquired by its contract manufacturer, China-based Pycia Robotics. The company said it will continue to operate, quote, with no anticipated disruption to its app functionality, customer programs, global partners, supply chain relationships, or ongoing product support, end quote. So what does that mean for you as a user if you have iRobot products? Everything should remain exactly the same. Your Roomba will continue to clean your floors, but now instead of being from a U.S. owned and based company, it is the China-based Pycia Robotics taking over. Since they've had all these issues, iRobot has kind of tweaked their product line. They've gone to cut prices to better compete with their rivals. They've also developed new model Roombas that are less pricey, but they have continued to see a decline in revenue, probably in part because of the fact that the competition is fierce in this sector. You're seeing constant evolution of things. And, the tariffs hit them pretty hard because I believe it was 46% in Vietnam is what the tariff rate was for where they're making these robots. That is courtesy, of course, of The Verge. If you want to go read the full article yourself, go check out the show notes that will be attached to this. You can go read the full article there, which I've kind of paraphrased, so credit to The Verge folks there. So, guys, we've talked about robot vacuums on here before. I think I've talked about them before. I know SP's talked about them. We've talked about them in our group chat, our experiences with them. Is anyone really surprised? The writing's been on the wall since 2022, when Amazon tried and then failed to acquire them. So the question for you guys, did the potential Amazon acquisition kind of doom them?
I don't know, because I think that I saw them still selling products out there in major areas, but I think the thing that really doomed them was that their pricing seemed to not be reflective of the fact that the competitors out there were offering comparable products at a lesser price, because there was a lot. They didn't really have any unique features. They do have I gotta look it up. Hold on. It's called the Pet. Oh, it's basically called poop protection. Okay, I'm trying to tell you that they call it. I can't find it. Anyways, they have a
You can't
thing.
find the pet poop.
I can't find the pet
problem.
poop. Yeah,
That's the
It's in the
problem.
litter box.
yeah. No,
You hope.
They have a sensor that looks for making sure that it doesn't catch waste as it goes around on certain models. And
To be fair, most robots have that now, though.
Oh, do they? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
never mind.
like
Yeah, but
even
it has
my 3-year-old Yuffie robot has it.
Yeah, but the iRobots have the special aroma sensor.
Mm,
Is that true?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. So I think that they just really need to not be a terrible product anymore.
I mean, part of their problem is that they tended to price themselves like they were still the lead
Yes.
in the competition of robotic vacuums, which kind of led me to my second question. I'll dovetail it in, and then I'll let SP tackle both. Is when you were doing your research on any of the robot vacuums you may have been considering, was iRobot even one of the top contenders anymore? Or were you looking at folks like Yuffie or Roborock or things like that?
Okay, before you answer that, I found it. It's called the iRobot. It's called the Pet Owner Official Promise. So when you spell that out, it spells poop. That was their little extra thing that they had when it had the poop detection.
Just like their stock price.
SP, go ahead and answer.
So I do think the high prices doomed it, because when I was looking for vacuums a few years ago and looking for them for gifts for my kids, it was just too high. I believe at the time, the models that I was looking at with the container, the extra container, because, pets and dogs and stuff, you have a lot of pet hair around, and it just, piles up inside the container. I needed something with a container, and iRobot does have one. I think they have they say it's a 75-day container, but it was like 1,200 or 1,400 at the time. I'd have to go back into the Camel and the Wayback Machine to find out what it actually was. But I could get a comparable Shark for, I could get a renewed one for $3, but like $400 to $600 was normally it, and that was a far cry from 1,200. So while I did clamor for the advanced features of iRobot, I did not want to pay the premium price for it just because I knew it was only going to last so long and then I'd have to get another one, you know? So yeah, I wasn't really enamored with the iRobot. Now, if I had all the money in the world, if I won the Powerball at $1+ billion, yeah, I'd get a fleet of them. But no,
the kicker is they're not the best
No.
anymore, especially when it comes to the software and the things that they do.
they were at the time though, right?
Fair.
But the price was just too big. So what do I look for nowadays? I look for something that is not going to have my data stolen, because it's going to have a map in my house and it's going to have some sort of a password that I have on it. So I would prefer that not to be pilfered.
Well, I was in a similar situation when I bought mine. I do need to buy a new one because it doesn't have great protection on it for the inevitable cat messes that come. But so I made a very similar decision to you. But I think that the software question is a good question because, yes, right now things status quo, all that. But what would happen if they suddenly went under and there's all these connected robots out there? How well is that going to go over? Maybe they'll find themselves amongst the wink.
And as far as the mapping goes, I have not explored that recently. Maybe you have since you moved, Chris, but I like the ability to go into the map and fence off different areas or rooms and say only clean this area or stay out of this area.
Sure.
And that would be a determining factor of whether I was going to buy a slightly comparable version of the vacuum as well.
So my 3-year-old Eufy X10 does that.
Okay.
And it mapped the entire house in like 2 minutes, basically, just by driving around, because it's got a little LiDAR on top. Incredibly efficient, works really well, mops and sweeps, and was about half the price of a comparable iRobot product. Now, that was comparing sale price to regular price. When they were both on sale, the Eufy one was still probably about $200 or $300 cheaper for the comparable product.
And as we all...
the trade-off... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as we all know, Eufy has a great history with security, right?
Right. I was going to say the trade-off there was, if this is something you care about, at the time, iRobot was a U.S.-owned company. So they're retaining all of that stuff, and Eufy is not. And now the question is, did it really matter? And I thought to myself, who cares if someone has a map of what the interior of my house looks like? There's no camera on it that takes a photo of anything, so they have a LiDAR map of my house. Cool. Whatever.
I think the other thing with the map of the house question is, if you've lived in it for not relatively long, such as you currently, Chris, at that point, if somebody's getting a map of the house, they're going to know where you live, and there's real estate listings that they can pull. But that's for people who haven't lived in the house for very, very long. And
so I'm not going to say this so people that listen to our show can dox me, but tax records are publicly accessible online. Easy peasy.
Oh, that's good, because I need your address to send me a Christmas card.
Well, there you go. That's how you can get it. And I'm not really joking when I say that, but
that's fair.
I mean, if my address can be found with a minuscule amount of effort just by a simple Google search of tax records, okay, then Eufy's got a 3D map of the interior of my house. So whoop-de-doo, you can know there's an end table here.
That's why people use LLCs or shell companies to buy houses these days. It's not because they're trying to profit off their house. It's because they're trying to hide their identity as much as they can. So that's A. B, who cares about the map of your house? Well, I'm going to go a little sci-fi-ish, a little Terminator-ish here. But if you combine it, if you have smart speakers in the house, the sound mapping can combine with the floor mapping and determine exactly where you are.
Cool.
I
guess already have an Ecobee that does that, so that it knows what room to prioritize the thermostat off of.
I guess for me, like when I'm looking at something like that, I care less about that than I do the misuse of the equipment on there. Like it's a little, I think personally, it's a little far reaching to think someone's gonna do that for me personally. But I do think that there's the potential where if somebody is using the data, the device which has cameras built into it, and they're using it, misusing that, there's blackmail options, there's other things that could be done by having those. So that's more of my concern than having the map.
Look,
You want
none
to
of this is
blackmail me for
terrifying.
walking around naked? Go ahead.
Hey, it works for
See how that
Linus,
goes.
right? But none of this is terrifying as that, what was it, the Ring camera built into a drone that was supposed to go in your house. That was the one that I was like, bridge way too far. Bridge way too far.
I mean, for a pet, I could say, for a concerned pet owner, if you really loved your pets
because
during the
drone
day,
sound is really not going to concern most
Right.
pets.
I mean, they'd get used to it after a while. It would take them a while, but they would get used to it. Look, did I tell you guys the story of when my robot vacuum was hacked?
Yes, you did. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what they did is they just launched it in the middle of the night. Oh, whoopee. I was
Yeah, right.
annoyed. I lost a little sleep. I changed my password. Things are
Whoopi
fine.
is right. They saw you doing Whoopi,
That's okay.
making Whoopi.
He's been married for a long time. That's unlikely.
Thank you, Chris. I was going to go in that direction. I was like, never mind. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not happening. Anyway.
Well, anywho, Chris Farrell, thank you for bringing us this bad news. We will forever think of the Roomba's inevitable disappearance one day, which will probably happen.
I mean, I thought
and
it was
associated
interesting
with
but-
you.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought it was interesting, but at the same time, it kind of made me realize, oh, wait, none of us use their product.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think that's just because we're all cheap, but which is true, right? But I
would argue, yes, you're correct to an extent, but I would argue that in the last 3 years, they're so far behind on feature parity that
Yes.
you're really just buying into a brand name because you didn't want to research if you were going that route.
So my question is, was it really that expensive to begin with, or were they just cashing in? Like, I don't believe they were
Both.
that expensive to begin with. Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think they were undercut by cheaper product. Now, whether that cheaper product was better or not at the time, I'm not sure. But I think you can argue that once the cheaper product got their foot in the door, they were then able to throw more money at things to be like, hey, you bought us once. Why don't you buy us again? I don't know. Like I said, I never owned one, but I did research. And every time I did when I was doing robot vacuum purchasing, I went, ew. Well, I mean, that's sort of the same, but I can get it for $300 cheaper if I buy Eufy, and went, same features, $300 cheaper, and it's better reviewed when I go and read the reviews online. Yes, please. Because go read like the Wirecutter reviews and stuff like that. iRobot's not at the top anymore.
Yeah. Wait a minute. How much are these? Like $400, $500?
Depends on what
I
you're
can-
looking to do.
I can buy a Suncast and have him vacuum my house for that amount.
You got to recall him from the moon, though. That's expensive.
I mean, you bring it back once and that pays for the next 20 years.
Well, speaking of recalling people from the moon, I wonder if the golden age of space exploration is here to be able to do such thing.
So do I. And I'm wondering what you guys think. So,
No.
okay.
All right, next topic.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yes, just to be contrary.
Okay, I got to know and a yes. So here is some background to the question. We're not going to talk about one specific thing, but I was just seeing the mountain of things happening at the end of this year and at the beginning of next year, so 2025 into 2026. And I was wondering, is this really the golden age of space exploration? I mean, I was alive during Apollo. I saw the shuttle program. I saw the International Space Station. But is this really it? And here's some things to consider. First of all, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. By the way, Nancy Grace Roman was the first space telescope chief scientist at NASA. And she was really the quote unquote mother of Hubble. And that is who the telescope is named after. And you add that to James Webb and Hubble and many others, and you have this new capability that's going to go out into L2 and be able to do a fantastic wide field view of things away from the aura of the Earth. And it's just going to be spectacular. So that's one thing. There was more than 100 launches from the Space Coast this year. That's in Florida, first time ever, over 100 launches. And it's just going to get more and more in the coming years. People are returning to the moon in a couple of months. No, they're not going to land, but they're going to fly around the moon for the first time in 53 years. You have multiple heavy lift reusable rockets, Starship, New Glenn, Falcon 9, and several other medium rockets that are on the drawing board and starting to operate now. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but next year you're going to have the first private space station launched. It's a vast company station called Haven 1. They've already tested all the relevant components on other missions. This will be the first actual station module that goes into orbit, and that's launching next year. There is now reporting that SpaceX is going to go public with an IPO in 2026. Jarrett Isaacman is going to be confirmed this week, I think, as the new NASA administrator. And I think he's going to transcend administrations. It doesn't matter
But
what.
how many pull-ups can he do?
I don't know. How many?
I don't know. I was just curious.
Okay.
That seems to be the measure of success.
So he is going to possibly transcend administrations no matter what political party is in the White House. He's that good. And it would be a shame, unless he burns out, it would be a shame not to let him have more than the 3 years left in the position. And you have multiple space-based internet constellations. We all know about Starlink. Amazon's their constellation was called Kuiper, and then like 2-3 weeks ago it was renamed Leo. So don't blame the messenger on the name, but Leo will be their space constellation. And there's other companies from other countries that are going up as well. And then you have this myriad of just great TV shows and movies like The Martian, The Expanse, For All Mankind Foundation, on and on and on. So do you guys think that this is, and I know you already answered, but now you have to tell me some more of why. Do you guys really think that this is the golden age, or do you think this is maybe a silver or bronze age, or what do you guys think?
I'll start by saying that I said no just for the humor factor, because I just like to say no to you. But in thinking about it, I do think we're not at the golden yet. I think that we have suddenly stalled off the momentum, I think, from where we were even excited about it a few years ago. I think things have not come to fruition of where we had hoped they would be by this point. We were years ago anticipating massive boom within many private sectors. And I get that there's certain projects that are doing good, but nobody except SpaceX is doing the volume that SpaceX is doing. So yeah. I don't think we're there yet. I think that we're starting to see some competition there. And once we get that competition, then we might get to the actual golden age. Very close. Very close.
I tend to agree with what you're saying there in that regard. But if we're talking just based off TV shows, well, Babylon 5 ended in the late 90s. So we're certainly not in the golden age anymore of space TV shows. I kid. But Stephen, you're right. We're kind of at that point right now where it seems like there's a lot of stuff coming up. And I don't know that we can call it the golden age. But I think there is a lot coming, looking like in the short term or near term future, rather. So if we call this the golden age, what would we call that when we are doing even more?
Platinum.
Maybe this is me just, the modern age. We can steal comic terminology. We have the Bronze Age, Silver Age, Golden Age, Modern Age. And this is not me just trying to be contrarian, but I feel like we kind of have to give ourselves a little wiggle room here to be like, hey, it looks like there's a lot more that's coming. So maybe we don't call it the golden age yet, so that we give ourselves some room to be like, see, a year from now, this is the golden age.
I think we're right on the cusp, like you guys were saying, but I think we're so close that I think saying that it start like in the future, 5 years down the road, we can look back in the fall and winter of 2025 and go, yeah, that's where it started. That's because the sheer amount of infrastructure that is going in to support this is just incredible. Whether it's in Florida and Texas, anywhere, it's more so now than there ever has been. And the reason I brought up SpaceX IPO is because you have a company that is going to be doing heavy lift reusable rockets to space, much like, and I know this is Steven's favorite company, but much like Boeing is with their airliners, right? Or Airbus is, we are now at the point where we are mechanizing the economics of this like any other major industry. So I think you're right. We're on the cusp of it. But if things go true next year, it's going to start rolling, and it's going to start rolling really fast. And we're going to look back in a year or two and go, wow, that all happened. Because I can go back and do a year in review of 2025. And even though there's been a lot of failures, which have stymied some of the movement forward, the real golden age, or the real accomplishment of 2025, was the infrastructure, the creation of the infrastructure to move this all forward. Because it just doesn't start out of nowhere. You don't go from the Wright brothers on the Kitty Hawk Beach in North Carolina to LaGuardia in 1 year. It
Right.
takes years to get that infrastructure up. So
Yeah,
that's
we've
where
all
I'm
seen the
at.
opening credits of Enterprise. We know how it goes.
It's been a long road.
Getting from there to here.
The other
No
thing,
singing because of fair use strikes.
Thank you.
the other thing that I do think is important with this is to step out a little bit of the North American aspect of it as well. And I think that once we start to see some entities outside of the North American market, then maybe that's where you start to go, okay, the real competition of space exploration is here, because you still look and there's like, outside of the American companies that are powering these private endeavors, it's still really old technology doing space stuff.
Well, but it's modernizing worldwide, though. You have the Canadian spaceport, which will be capable of doing reusable rockets. The same is true of
But
multiple locations in Europe.
Again, though, that's North. Okay, the Europe one. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
And you're going to get Australia. And I haven't even gone into other countries for reasons that I just can't. But there are other countries out there that are vastly improving their space infrastructure and capabilities right now.
Well, I look forward to the day that you finally do an episode of this podcast from Mars. I know it's right around the corner.
That was like 200 episodes ago.
Honestly, it'd be kind of fun, but I don't know if I'd survive the trip.
I think also the latency might be a little tough, but
oh, I mean, that's what faster than light. That's what do they call it? Subspace. That's what subspace is for. Yeah.
Right. You just got to get the Fast and the Furious people on that, right?
Substack. That's where you subscribe to those things, not Subspace.
Or we can have Ant-Man and go quantum.
Okay, cool.
I mean, there are possibilities.
Could you leap that?
I don't know what that means.
Quantum leap.
Not. Oh, quantum leap. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Why not? I mean, Captain of the Enterprise. Sure. Okay.
Well, let us know what your thoughts are on this. Come on over to our Discord at GonnaGeek.com/Discord. There is a space channel over there called Outer-Space-Talk-and-Science. We should probably change that again. Also, we are going to talk about awful things because I gave Chris a hard time. So I might as well give myself a hard time here. Because if you missed our chit-chattery last week, you might have missed that we briefly touched on RAM prices right now, memory prices being very annoyingly expensive due to the AI boom. And I'm just going to highlight my cleverness here is you may have heard of Rage Against the Machine. I have titled on this sidebar here, I have said Rage Against Memory, because we're raging against memory prices. And that spells RAM. Aren't I clever?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyways, yes, we lamented last week all about how AI is ruining all sorts of things, including including RAM.
Whoa.
AI is ruining all sorts of things. So it's ruining your RAM, but luckily not my RAM 1500 Classic, at least not yet. So if you didn't know this, it has been a huge increase in memory prices over the last little while, and it's just continuing to get worse. If you have not been following this, you are going to get caught up as I recap some of the things that I've read in this past week that are framing how bad it has gotten. So let's start off with a bit of an article here that I saw on Tech for Gamers. And it's talking all about how laptops are basically going to settle back in to the 8 gig standard
Boo.
for
Boo.
RAM. Apparently,
No way.
yes, I know. Apparently, there was an analysis that came out and said that while mid and low range were headed towards 16 gigs as their base, they're basically shifting back towards 8. Another way you could look at this, an article on Tom's Hardware pointed out that currently an entire PlayStation 5 can be found for less than 64 gigs of RAM. And they say, quote, thanks to the AI boom devouring the majority of the world's memory and storage supply, end consumers are now facing increasingly inflated prices for common components. And then it goes on to quote how there was G-Skill's Trident Z5 Neo 6000 was found for $599 on Newegg right now, which was about $200 more than a PlayStation 5 Slim or Xbox Series S. So yeah, that frames it in one way. Another thing that you might want to consider is the fact that many manufacturers are commenting on this right now, including Dell, HP, and Apple, which have provided stable statements. Apple did say, however, that they feel confident that they can use their power to keep things manageable, but did end up saying that new products may have a slightly higher cost structure.
What a shock.
Shocking. A prediction on how long this will last. I saw a Digitech article that says that they think it might last till 2028. And a PC Gamer article that I saw talks about how, don't worry, it's not just going to be RAM, it's probably going to be SSD costs soon as well, due to, some similar components on there and NAND flash and all that stuff. So I thought, how should I wrap up this uplifting segment? I know what I'll do. I bought RAM earlier this year. I dug out my receipt and I bought 64 gigs of G-Skill Ripjaws M5 Neo 6000 megahertz CL36 RAM. Bought that earlier this year for $234.99 at a company called Memory Express. I'm only saying it so that I can quote here. Do you want to know how much it's listed for right now? And there is some stock in some stores.
So you could fund your kids' college education by selling that on the black market.
Pretty much, because right now that same listing is listed for $1,098 Canadian.
But you can't replace it.
No.
So like $3 American.
It's like the housing. Yeah. It's like the housing bubble, though. You can sell it, but you're not going to be able to recoup it.
Yeah. I kind of wish I'd bought more so I could have halved it or something. But yeah. So obviously the cheaper, especially single sticks and stuff, the smaller quantities of RAM, they're still more expensive than they were, but they are more stable because there's not a lot of market for those limited RAM amounts. So I was looking, and I think 16 gigs was a couple $100 Canadian, which is still a lot considering I just bought 64 gigs in January for that same price, but at least it's doable for people.
I wonder if this will drive a evolution in motherboards where there's more slots for memory, so you can upgrade just a little bit at a time.
I think the only thing going to be driving evolution right now is how they can make more money off of AI. I don't think the consumer side of the house
that's fair.
makes them enough money to care.
Because that's a good question, because I would think, and I was watching some Gamer Nexus stuff on this, and the question came to my mind as I was skimming through the videos is, how big is that market right now? Like, how many people actually want to build their own PCs, or how many people are buying a gaming PC these days? When you have, and we've had this argument before or discussion before, where you have tablets and consoles and stuff. I just don't think the market's there.
Yeah, well, the question I wanted to ask you guys along that line is, does this impact any of your personal upgrade plans?
Yes.
And
Yes.
also, okay, so yes, but I also wanted to ask along the lines of, does that include OS choice? Because we've talked in the past where Windows is way more bloated than both Mac and Linux. I will say, however, that I do believe that diehards of both Mac and Linux do tend to paint things colorful or see things half glass full a lot more than they
guess
actually
what,
are.
Steven? In other news, water is wet.
Exactly, that's true. So this
Depends
is
on
my
what the
question.
temperature is.
Because Windows 10 and 11 have been so bloated that I think there's going to probably be more and more people, they're already struggling with some of the Windows 11 quirks that are out there. And if it's like, well, I could spend $1,000 on RAM to have the same performance under Windows as it would be for, get half that amount of RAM, they might be tempted.
So the counter argument I've heard about the price of RAM is that they will rent online RAM, much like a lot of people rent online storage. You can rent in these data centers or these AI computing centers that they're putting up at, great cost because there's so much money in AI that they can then rent out servers or racks for the general consumer. So you could have 8 or 16 gigabytes in your laptop and rent out 128 in the server farm. Now, this does depend on your ability to have internet connection. Say if you're on an airplane without connection, you're not going to be able to take use of that. So if you're running any sort of number crunching, render, you're not going to be able to do that if you're disconnected. So it's a pro and the con there.
We're talking cloud-based RAM effectively.
Yep.
There's latency issues with that would be my concern.
Extreme latency issues, I would think. Like if you're doing modeling based systems engineering, I would be really concerned about that latency issue with RAM or computing power.
In the chat, Kent says that he got peed off about how badly an old laptop was handling Windows, so he converted that over to Ubuntu, and it's doing so much better.
Yeah, sure.
Alarun says that it wouldn't be RAM, they would rent a VM.
Yeah, but basically you're renting the RAM through the VM that way. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. As I stutter all over that, how does this impact your upgrade thoughts then, SP, since you said no, or you said it would?
Well, I don't know if it's been this year or not. I swear we've talked about it on GonnaGeek this year. I am in the market for a new laptop, and I was looking for a duo laptop, one with the smaller screen and the bigger screen on it. I've hence found out that they don't make those anymore. I don't know if they just didn't catch on, if the display driver controllers weren't able to successfully utilize all the screens correctly or whatever. But you can buy a duo with 2 screens now that fold out, but I don't think the computing power for those are really great. So I was thinking about just getting a normal 17-inch laptop, and I'm in the Windows architecture, so one with Windows 11, but I wanted like 32 to 64 gigabytes of RAM just because I'm going to need it to render video. This would be a purchase for the next 5 to 7 years, not just for a year or two. At the rate that I go through stuff, I would like to be able to do a video podcast render for the next 5 years, right? So because of the expense of RAM or just the inability to add that much into a laptop, because those are fixed fit forms, it's very hard to expand the memory of a laptop these days because they're not meant to be worked on or upgraded or anything. I was considering now, just for that reason, looking into a Apple laptop because of the M chip being able to utilize the RAM more efficiently.
How about you, Chris?
I mean, I didn't really have any plans to upgrade anytime soon, and this just would push them off further because I don't really have a need to. Everything I need to do for podcasting and for personal just tinkering about works fine on my old M1 Mac Mini that I'm doing this podcast from. I can transcode video. It's not as fast as it could be, obviously, but it's relatively efficient and quick with the M1 processor. I don't have any need for it. And my gaming backlog is so big on my Xbox that I don't need to upgrade that anytime soon either, because I've got crap loads of stuff I still need to play. So I'm like, I'm waiting it out. I got nothing I really need.
Well, if you have any thoughts on this, come on over to our Discord at GonnaGeek.com/Discord. We have a tech and gear channel over there. All right, let's go on to the next news point here, which is where Chris is going to tell us about how dark web reports are going to go dark.
I see what you did there. So I found the reference article on arstechnica.com. Please go to the show notes to check out the full article. We'll paraphrase some stuff as we discuss it and go through the article. But I don't know if you guys were aware, Google began offering dark web reports a while back. The company has just now announced the feature is going away very soon. Another thing to the product graveyard. In an email to users of the service, Google says it will stop telling you about dark web data leaks in February. This probably won't negatively impact your security or privacy, though, because as Google points out in their latest email, there's not really anything you can do about your data if it is on the dark web. You just know and get frustrated. So some history here. The dark web reports launched in March of 2023 as a perk for Google One subscribers. The reports were expanded to general access in 2024. And now a year later, Google has decided it doesn't see the value in this type of alert for users. Why is that? Well, dark web reports provide a list of partially redacted user data retrieved from shadowy forums and sites where this information is bought and sold. However, all it is a list. As Google admits in the email alert, it didn't really offer much help, saying, quote, feedback showed that it did not provide helpful next steps, end quote. With other types of personal data alerts provided by the company, it has the power to do something. For example, I use their service for non-dark web stuff. If my personally identifiable information is found on search pages and things like that, I can ask Google to remove it from their search results so it no longer shows up. For the dark web, you can't do that. You just kind of get notified that, hey, your data has been found here. We don't know what to tell you to do next. So I sort of get their point, because really all it does is introduce user frustration. I guess the good thing is, your data is out there. But if you're like me, you just kind of assume your data is always out there at this point in time. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys subscribe to the Google One subscription service. I kind of have it lumped in from my Pixel Pass stuff from years ago that I'm still getting grandfathered into. So my question for Steven and SP, have you guys used these dark web reports or seen them from Google as part of a Google One subscription?
For the audio listener, SP is tapping at his phone.
Yeah, it's an iPhone 17 Pro Max.
It's not limited to phones. It's limited to accounts. It's part of your Google account, not your phone.
Yeah, I do have a Google account for storage that all the podcast documents and everything over the course of the years have just necessitated me to move forward to something. Have I used the dark web reports? Yeah, but it's been work related. It hasn't been personal related. So from that perspective, it can be useful depending on what you're trying to use it from a professional standpoint or from a data protection standpoint. But really, you're right. It's just a listing of what's been pilfered and out there and available that has been reported. Because there's probably some data treasure troves that have not been reported or on the dark web that are in reserve for purchasing through, hey, I have this, it fits of value to you sort of thing, if it's from a really discrete source. So like I said, yes and no. From a personal standpoint, I haven't used them at all.
And I think the key with this to bear in mind with is this is only the dark web aspect of their privacy reporting and stuff like that, or PII reporting that's going away. So like if your PII is found being sold on a website or found in Google search results and stuff like that, you still have the ability of either a tool to remove it, which I have done, because it used to be you could search my name and in Google search results, it would show your results list and my name and old phone numbers and stuff like that. So anytime it comes up, I would remove it. But the dark web one, I think I got one once. I looked at it and went, well, I really can't do anything with this. I assumed that was all out there. I guess I'm glad to know that it is.
Well, so that's sort of my thoughts on it is I don't necessarily buy the notion of it not being useful. I do think, however, when you extend that it's not profitable for them because of that. And so,
I mean, that's fair, but also in today's world, we should all pretty much just assume our data is going to get leaked anyways. It's kind of how I look at it. So maybe I'm a bit nonplussed because I have that viewpoint.
but
That's where multiple factor security is actually more important.
well,
Exactly.
but also I do think though, if you know specifically what is out there, you can, if you're notified about it, at least you could take action, whatever it is. Some things you'll have a limited amount of action. Sometimes it might be very important action. So you find out that all of a sudden your nudes are on the internet. Okay, maybe it's time to tell your family about it, or on the dark web. You find out all of a sudden that you're
no.
I don't know, or not, whatever. You find out that certain credit information's on there. Okay, you pull a credit report on yourself right away. You see, okay, there's nothing on there. Now, what can I do to help protect myself immediately? What can I do to limit my potential future exposure? So I do think there are things that can be learned from that, from just the notification, depending on what specifically it was. But I think that there are like so many companies out there where it's the latest, hottest thing. So let's get in on it. Okay, it didn't benefit us in any way. So let's get out of it. Which is pretty much the essence of the Google graveyard.
I think you're right on that one, but I think at the same time, the whole concept of this reporting was kind of lame because it's more of a matter of, hey, you've got this problem, you should figure out what to do with it. But if you have these other problems, we can help you deal with it. Just because it's the dark web, it's that nebulous, I don't know what the crap I'm supposed to do. And Google didn't really have anything they could do to help you because they don't really exist there. It's more just a matter of, hey, you should be aware this data is out there. And I have lived in a world long enough where my PI has been leaked so many times at this point in time that it's just commonplace for me. So I automatically assume all of that data is out there. So for me, it was more of a confirmation of my own bias. I was like, oh, cool, kind of what I expected, whatever. But for someone else, maybe it would be a matter to be like, oh my God, I haven't thought about my security posture. Maybe I should tighten things up. So I can sort of see where it might be helpful in that regard. But I don't know. I feel like it kind of is a hysteria. It gives hysteria to people with no way to fix it, is my concern.
Yeah, I think it's going to drive a new age in cybersecurity. I know these things exist today, but I think they're going to become more commonplace in the next 2 to 3 years. Things like whole house VPNs and internet filters. And I know that a lot of us that listen or are on this show already have those sorts of technologies, but I think it's going to be more widespread where you're going to be able, I mean, the internet ad blocker, for instance, that sort of technology is going to be more and more pervasive to prevent people from getting into your interior networks and your interior devices if you're on public access points. So I just see this as, yeah, it exists today, but it's going to drive a cold war, if you will, of this technology between protection and availability of information.
Well, we could go down that rabbit hole because I have all sorts of thoughts about legal entities being the bigger concern, but perhaps we should not, because I might say some things that...
No, I mean, the consolidation of data doesn't matter if it's illegal or legal. It's the consolidation of data. I would agree with you.
Fair enough. All right, well... Going from the dark web to, I got no segue. I was going to say dark hole, but that's not right.
The great orifice.
The great orifice. Anyways, SP is going to brag about how he was right. I know that that's coming. I know that's coming in the essence of this conversation, and I just can't wait because when I heard about this news, I immediately thought of the GonnaGeek Show.
So I don't ever remember, and I'm sure I did since you mentioned it, I don't ever remember pontificating this. Did I?
I think you and Chris argued because Chris had been saying for a while or Chris had been rightfully pointing out that this whole topic of conversation had apparently been happening for many, many years. And I think it was a whole I'll believe it when I see it thing.
Right.
If I'm remembering correctly.
When I see it.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll still believe it when I see it. We're years away.
I think we're both in that bandwagon. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about the news story that came out a few weeks ago, and I haven't been on the show in the last month, but the Stargate SG-1 reboot has been greenlit by Amazon, and it does include the original creation team, and it is supposed to be, a modernized version of it, a continuation. It's not really a reboot, it's a continuation from what I've heard so far. So we'll see what it actually ends up being. Who knows what it'll end up being? But I think that this is a series ripe, as long as they get it right, from the standpoint of the fandom of really embracing it. Now, we've seen things rebooted or continued, and it has been a hit or miss. So anything from BSG, and there are people that still to this day hate on BSG of an older generation, that's not my Starbuck, right? There's still people like that. And there are still people that, and we've had internal discussions on Strange New Worlds. That's not how Star Trek is, especially this last season, season 3. That's not really how it was. Or the first 2 seasons of Picard were like that, right? So I think they need to get to the core of what made Stargate SG-1 really good to start with, and stay away from where they were going with Universe, which is a darker era. And I know that the whole concept of, writing for modern television has changed since Stargate started in the 90s, right? We're 30 years from when it started. I know things have evolved since then, but it's happening, and which is great. So that's my opinion. But what do you guys think? Is it worth to explore a Stargate? And I say reboot in the notes, but it's really continuation. So is it worth to explore this Stargate continuation? What do you think?
I'll defer to Chris on this because I'll admit, never watched it, any of it.
Okay, so I'll take it then. I am biased because I enjoy Stargate a lot, but I think it is worth it to do it. You don't spend all that money to buy MGM and have that entire back catalog and then do nothing with it. And I think they're sort of taking the right path with it here, because if you go and watch the announcement, they did exclusive interviews with Gate World and other Stargate positive press and YouTubers and interviews and things like that to discuss what was coming, and made a point of saying, hey, this is going to honor what you've seen before. In fact, the showrunner on it, Martin Giro, got his start in Giro, I don't know how you say it, I apologize.
Giro.
Got his start on Stargate Atlantis as a staff writer back in 2004, then wrote episodes for SG-1 in addition to Atlantis, before moving on and working in other television programs after the shows ended. And he made a point, and I had to pull up the article from Gate World, of saying it's not a reboot, it's a brand new chapter. It's its own unique chapter in the Stargate universe. He continued and said, for us, it is really important to not only have it so that fans feel like this is my Stargate, this is the Stargate I've been waiting 14 years for, but also a brand new audience can come in without having watched 350 episodes of an amazing show. They can start with episode 1 and say, of a new Stargate show. And then if they love it, they can go back and watch everything else. Now, do I think that's a bold swing to take? Absolutely, because it's real hard to cater to the fanboys in some cases and make it be wide open and accessible to, normal fans isn't the right term, but people who aren't familiar with the product. If you want to make something where you can hook someone new, I don't know how you can reference or kind of give us that right hook to kind of wrap up 350 episodes of Stargate and move forward. But I mean, we do have most dangling plot threads have been wrapped up, other than the fate of the Stargate universe crew, which they could have some aside on that. We don't know if Atlantis made it back. They could do some interesting stuff there.
Atlantis did make it back at the end. Yes, we know that.
Atlantis did not. It was still in San Francisco Bay Harbor. It was still on Earth at the end of Atlantis.
Are you talking about made it back to the original
Pegasus galaxy?
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
fair. I thought it was just here on Earth. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it is here on Earth, but presumably they wanted to go back. And if you read the books that were written, which are non-canon at this point in time, there's this whole effort to go back to the Pegasus galaxy. So there's a lot that's going on, and the world has changed a lot since Stargate was a thing. So I think it'll also be very interesting to see how that's reflected, and to see if we now live in a world where knowledge of the gate is commonplace and humanity's kind of accepted their place in the galaxy. That could very much change what the show is now from what it was back in its original run. Because remember, back then, the Stargate was controlled by the military, it was kept secret from the public. They were able to successfully cover up multiple world invasions and stuff like that.
Okay. It was controlled by the military, but there was civilian oversight. Okay.
Yes.
I will concur with what you said. Yeah.
But effectively what I mean is your common person going down the street couldn't go and do gate travel to go visit the Jaffa homeworld or something like that because they didn't know about it. So if we move to a world now where knowledge of the gate is public and that they're doing things with it, I think it would be very interesting and also present a pretty cool jumping on point. And I think you'd almost have to do that because how would you keep that secret for another 25 years?
You couldn't keep it secret at all because there was what, 3 huge space battles around the planet. You can't tell me that people didn't see that. First of all. Second of all, Atlantis is, as you pointed out, in the harbor of San Francisco. It's kind of hard to hide a city that's right there.
But
well, I mean, but this UPM would run out of power and bingo, it's not cloaked anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could go on. There's a lot of back history that could get filled in, and don't expect this to be coming anytime soon because it sounded like from the way they were talking, they're only in the very early stages of pre-production. It sounds like there is a pretty decent commitment from Amazon to proceed with it, but if we get anything before 2027, I would be shocked. And not by that, I mean even a trailer or even casting news at this point in time. I guess the question I would have is, do they give us any nice nods back to what we've had before? Do we get a cameo of General Carter now or something like that? Or does Daniel Jackson show up? Or does Teal'c show up? Any of those things? Are we going to get some little cameos of people we've seen before? Or is it all going to be kind of just winking a nod towards things we've seen?
Yeah.
Or as Kent puts up, will Daniel die again?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. So Richard D. Anderson is so old. If you've seen him lately, he does look aged, like significantly. I just don't see him in any sort of meaningful role in something like this. Look, Stargate SG-1, once I found out about it during the run of BSG, it became my favorite sci-fi franchise of all time. And it took The Expanse from coming out for me to change that. So my hierarchy goes Expanse, SG-1, and then we can debate what's beyond that. But that's my 2 favorite franchises to date so far. So I'm excited after the miserable ending that we got with Universe. And I say miserable ending because it was like an open-ended, they deliberately did it so they could bring it back at some point in time, open-ended ending there. And it just needs some sort of jumping off point for a continuation. Now, I'm not
sure we're going to get any resolution on Universe other than maybe a throwaway line.
But the Stargate universe, not to dub the title from the thing, was ended by that. There was no other journey, no other adventure out there. So we needed another adventure. And what I hope we don't get is a Discovery. And while there were scenes of brilliance and half a series of brilliance in Star Trek Discovery,
well, I think
it wasn't the Strange New Worlds for the franchise, basically.
I think the important thing to note when comparing Discovery and how it was created to what we're starting to see with the Stargate one right now is they tried to do all bold, fresh new take on how Star Trek should be. Whereas it looks like with Stargate, it's like, hey, we want to do something new, but we want to honor what's come before. And we're bringing a bunch of the creative team from the old series in to be involved, not necessarily as the showrunners, but as creative consultants and to help put us in the mindset of things that were going on. I mean, we know that the old Stargate team has been at work on things. Like they've talked about, hey, we've tried to bring it back multiple times. Here's the pitches we had. Here's how we were going to continue Stargate Atlantis and stuff like that.
MGM and their inability to fund it and move forward that said no.
What was it? Joseph Mazalazzi? Yeah. I always mess up his name. Like he's been active on Reddit and social media, sharing what their plans were for the continuation of Stargate Atlantis, like sharing scripts, sharing production art. It's been fascinating. And he has a passion for it. And you can tell because of how he communicates it with the fans. And for him to be involved in this continuation and Brad Wright to be involved in this continuation, they're at least showing the right signs of, we want to honor what was here before, but we want to do something new. Whereas I think what rubbed a lot of people wrong with Discovery was well, we're going to do Star Trek our way, and it's the right way of doing it with a modern take on it. And we can debate back and forth whether we think that was right or not. I know we all have opinions, but it became divisive because it felt like they were too focused on trying to put their own slant on Star Trek than it was to take what worked from before and to move forward with it. And I hope that's what they do with Stargate.
So I have three really quick things to say, and then I'll jump off this subject. But the first is that, unfortunately, between the financial state of MGM and the ownership of the property by Roland Emmerich, who did the original movie, they weren't really able to bring anything else forward once Stargate Universe ended. So that's number one. Number two, I really feel for Joe Malozzi, because he also had the same issue with Continuum, where he continually wants to bring that back, and unfortunately he can't because it's just not the right time or whatever. And that is such a great series. If you haven't never seen it, Continuum is really cool. And the last thing that I will say on this is that, yeah, I'm excited at this point for it, and I hope I'm around to see it rebooted in 2 to 3 years, because I think you're right, it's going to take that long to get even a series of 10 episodes with it. A season 1 with 10 episodes. I think it's going to take a while, because it took a while to get Star Trek Strange New Worlds going, and that was including the ongoing production of Discovery, which it came from. So yeah, it's we'll see how this goes, and I am excited about the future. And I know Steven could care less, but he's got a lot of time now to watch 17 years of Stargate.
I think it'd be more interesting to have him watch whatever the new stuff is and see if someone who has not watched Stargate before gets hooked by whatever they premiere with.
I'm sure I've said this 1,000 times. I'll probably watch it eventually. That's, I'm sure I've said that on the show, but what I didn't misspeak earlier. I have watched the movie, because last time that I planned to try to start doing things, I did start with the movie and then didn't do anything else. So I misspoke earlier. But what I will chime into this whole conversation is that I think that this faces a couple other uphill battles, which is, number one, I do think that in the current era of streaming, if we don't see things continue to consolidate, which we might, I think the streaming factor is a real hard sell to get momentum on some of these series. Like, you really end up with more cult classics. Look at pretty much anything of the Apple TV variety. You don't. There's several on there, which if they were on network television 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you probably would have a lot more people following it as like mainstream, like how Stargate was in its era. But also, I do think that sci-fi in general coming back always faces, and this includes Strange New Worlds, always faces the problem of modern production versus what it was originally designed for, which is that a 10-episode series makes it more like a drawn-out movie versus the serialized fashion. Strange New World has gone that way. They started out serialized, and then they changed. And so I think that that's going to be a problem here. And I haven't seen a sci-fi reboot come back, or actually, to be honest, most reboots that have come back that were originally a long season come back with like a very limited run. They don't live up because it's a different type of storytelling than they were originally built in.
I will counter with season 3 of Picard being the 8th TNG season.
I mean, that was just fan service. No,
season 3 was not serialized. It really wasn't. It was more or episodic. Sorry, I said that wrong. It was not episodic. It was more serialized, and that's not like Star Trek used to be episodic.
Well, yes and no. That part of what was so controversial at Deep Space Nine is the fact that they started doing things where you had a 3-season long war, and if you miss an episode, you're like, wait, why the hell is Cisco crashed on a planet, and where's the Deep Space Nine? So that's kind of a problem they ran into with that. Traditionally, though, I mean, and we saw Voyager pivot very hard back to only doing like very short arcs and stuff. But stepping back to that with Stargate, like they played with both season-long plot arcs and just like creature of the week kind of stuff in a given season. So like while seasons were 22 episodes, like if you took some of the bloated creature of the week stuff out and condensed it down to like arc essential episodes, you're probably getting close to like 15 episode arcs, stuff like that, which is what you could do with this. I mean, we don't even know how long this first season is going to be. I think it's fair to guess 8 to 10 episodes just because of what we've seen. But honestly, to me, what it comes down to is, does Jeff Bezos like Stargate? Because we know that's why they got The Expanse effectively, is because Bezos liked The Expanse. So he bought it. Does he like Stargate?
I want to say he likes Bond, and Stargate was just an ancillary pickup.
That could very well be it too. So then you need Stargate to do well and to get, I don't know, streaming ratings, for lack of a better term, to justify that investment and continuing forward. Because my guess is it will probably not be the cheapest of shows to produce, because it's going to be a sci-fi show, probably set partially in space with space battles and stuff like that, in addition to interstellar travel. And not everything's going to look like Vancouver, potentially.
And also, I do think that, Prime Video faces big issues. Like, I think Jack Ryan should have been much bigger than it was. Like, it was
Fair.
okay because at the time there was like that big boom in some of these streaming services, but it got drawn out. And I think that the formula was there for it to be a really powerful series, but it just kind of faded because not enough people cared. And the last news point that we've got here today is all about a Christmas miracle. It's a Christmas miracle, you guys. Are you ready to hear about this miracle?
The Grinch is back?
I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know.
I love the Grinch.
Before we get to the news point, let me ask you this. Classic Grinch or Jim Carrey Grinch? Which is a better movie?
Classic.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm not really a Grinch fan, but I think Jim Carrey brought it more so into a modern age versus 1970s animation.
Right there with you. 100% with you.
Ugh, blasphemers.
I mean, I grew up on it. I get it. Yeah, it's what I would think of in terms of the whole thing, but yeah, I'll have to go. Jim, I think I might have only seen it once too, by the way.
All right. Well, here's the last news point we've got here is that Google and Apple can get along. Can you believe it?
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you about how they can get along because on Wednesday, Google released a patch for several security bugs in its Chrome browser. And they were noting that one of the bugs, and 0-day bugs, by the way, was being actively exploited by hackers before the company had a chance to patch it. And Google ended up saying last Friday that the bug was actually discovered by Apple's security engineering team. And that the Google's threat analysis group was involved. But they did end up patching it because of this. And at the same time, coincidentally, Apple released some other patches for their flagship products, including iPhones, iPads, Macs, Vision Pros, Apple TVs, Apple Watches, and the Safari browser, all with 0-day exploits. We don't know for sure if the Apple one was related to the Chrome one, but just know they both came out similarly timed. And Google does say that Apple was the one that flagged it for Chrome. So if you have not updated your stuff in a while, make sure that it's updated. And Apple's bugs said that, quote, that was this issue may have been exploited in an extremely sophisticated attack against specific targeted individuals, end quote. Who knows? So my question for you is, why is Apple impervious to bugs? Because I heard that they are 100% secure 100% of the time.
Well, it has to do with the insecticide that they put on the apples.
Fair enough. Chris Farrell, do you have an answer to that?
They're not. You just don't hear about it as much. One of the worst misconceptions there is, well, I've got an Apple, I can't get hacked. No, it doesn't work that way, people. It's just for a long time, PC had the predominant market share, so people would put more effort in towards malware, targeting PCs and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to always update your stuff. And I get more and more irritated by people who try to claim that Apple products are just secure. I like
Well,
to
they're
see
secure for themselves. I'll give you an example. So my daughter got a brand new Apple Watch for
Okay.
her Christmas present.
Yeah.
And she asked me to help her set it up. And we went to go set it up, and she hadn't updated her iOS to the 26, which is the current iOS at this point in time. And the watch would refuse to pair with her phone. So that's a security marker right there.
That's interesting. Actually, just today, my wife was fighting to get her Apple Watch to pair to her phone as well.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
It seems to be a common problem.
So yes, they are secure. Okay, I take that back. No, just seriously, update your stuff. Make sure you're always paying attention, because honestly, there are always going to be 0-day exploits that come out. There's not a lot of notifications that happen around them. Even if you knew what they were, a lot of people would just choose to ignore them. But it's important that you pay attention and update where possible, because otherwise you could find yourself a victim of ransomware or spyware or other nefarious cybersecurity issues.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's only a matter of time before those cameras get hacked if they haven't been hacked already.
Whose cameras? Mine?
No, well, any phone really, but Apple phones.
StephenCam.com.
Yeah.
Don't actually go there. I don't know what it is.
It's like, okay, let's find out.
Well, let's find out. I'm curious.
But that's going to take us towards the end of another episode of the official GonnaGeek Show. We thank you.
Whoa. Don't go there. Don't go there.
Okay, really? That's so funny.
Yeah, don't go there.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
It doesn't even load for me. It's disappointing.
That's a shame. But yes, that's another episode of the official GonnaGeek Show. We encourage you to come to our Discord because we have a lot of fun geeky conversation over there. There's a lot of fun chit-chattery that happens there. I called out some of the channels during this episode, but there are a lot more than the ones that I mentioned. So come to our Discord. There is also the Toilet Talk channel, which did have a post in it this past week. It had, oh, maybe it wasn't. No, never mind. It wasn't the Toilet Talk channel that had a post, but there was a post in the GonnaGeek Show channel, which could have gone to Toilet Talk because Josh Liston had listened and commented all about how Chris and I went right into the Toilet Talk.
Well, yeah, why not?
So make sure you come over and chat all over there. It has now been renamed to Billet Talk.
It was misspelled.
Now it's called Bidet Talk. So you can check that all out there at the Discord. Live things are happening over there. And we look forward to your bidet talk next time, SP, after you've had a chance to listen and catch up on episode 420 from last week or 2 weeks ago. And then you can tell us all about your thoughts on bidets.
Okay.
It's been a fun year. We look forward to podcasting together again next year. And if we don't talk to you in the Discord before then, if you are someone who celebrates holidays during this time of year, we hope that you have safe and enjoyable holidays. And make sure that you have one for SP, because we know that he is limited with the amount that he can have. He's talked about it on the show. So we all have to do our part. At least that's what I tell my wife. I'm doing it for SP.
Yeah, let's share it around. Yeah. Let's have fun, everybody. And everybody stay safe. And yeah, you can hit me up on the Discord channel anytime. A couple people have already in private messages. So that's been really cool. Thank you very much. But you can talk to me in the channels too. So I appreciate everybody's thoughts. I shared something in the Better Podcasting channel. So if you're a member of the Discord, you can go there and you can find out what's going on.
Chris, anything you want to say before we close out this episode?
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. I got nothing.
Well said. So for episode 421 of the official GonnaGeek Show, I'm Steven saying one of us has a gauntlet behind them that can give you the bird.
I'm Chris, and this hat hurts my head so much. So much.
My name is SP, and I think I know what I'm getting these two gentlemen for holiday gifts next year. See you guys later. Bye.
Rocket ship?
Sure.
Is
3D
it
printed.
a new Stargate series? Bye.
2027. Bye.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next show.